Welcome to this USC signing day special where we break down every offensive signee for USC that signed in the past 3 days. Of course, there's some more guys that can get added to this 2026 class for USC, but we're just going to focus on everybody that just signed on offense. If this video does well enough, if you guys like it enough, you guys reach out enough, I'll make sure I go ahead and do a defensive video in the next couple weeks, sometime before the national championship. So please reach out if this is the kind of stuff that you like. And of course, there's some opinionated stuff on here. I gave my 2 cents. You guys are feel free to reach out and disagree with me if you think I'm higher on some player than I ought to be, if you think I'm lower on some player. And there are some guys that I didn't have the time to do the voiceover for. I just included the film just to kind of keep it complete. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think about this stuff. Thanks for watching. As always, we're going to get started with the quarterback signee in this 2026 class, and for USC, it ends up being Jonas Williams. So this is a guy that originally committed back in February, and since then, I know USC, at least in the spring, we're kind of talking to some other quarterbacks. Ryder Lyons, the BYU commit, was one of those names, and I was like, man, Ryder Lyons is a great football player, but personally, if I had Jonas Williams in my back pocket, a guy already committed to play for this Lincoln Riley offense, this is a guy that I keep. You know, I don't really go after another quarterback, because I'm very high on him. 6'1.5", 215, really like the frame that he has. I mean, that's one thing that you really like about Jayden Maiava, how wide of a quarterback he is. You don't feel bad about him. You don't worry about him handling hits at the next level, and we'll look at that with Jonas Williams right here, the way that he can bounce off of these arm tackles. 6'1.5", 215, that is a big football player. That is a big quarterback as a high school player, so I really feel good about him continuing to add weight as far as that's concerned. But to me, why I personally like Jonas Williams very much is because of how quick the ball gets out of his hands. You can take a look at how fast the release is. That's one of those things that you can't change. You talk a lot about quarterbacks getting stronger arms at the next level, you know, the progressions getting faster. That's all something you can improve. The way that you throw as a high school player, and quite frankly as an 8th grader, that's really how you're going to throw football for the rest of your life. They talk about all the time trying to change these quarterbacks' throwing motions. It doesn't work. Jonas Williams is one of those guys that has one of the best releases in this 2026 class, in my opinion. The way that he can push the ball down the field, I don't think he has the best arm in the 2026 class, but that quick release and the way that he can time these routes downfield lets him get the ball out really fast. That really helps him push the ball down the field. He has a really good arm as well. Really good athlete also. That's something that's really exciting. We'll see him in the open field, I think, in just a little bit. You know, this is a quarterback first, but then he has that big frame and that athleticism to break the pocket, find people downfield like he just did, and we'll see a clip where he's in the open field, and really do like him as a dual threat quarterback, especially in this Lincoln Riley offense. But to me, the real reason I'm such a big fan of Jonas Williams, like I said, one of the best, I think the best release in this 2026 class. I watch a lot of recruiting, and, you know, off the top of my head, when I first watched these junior year films back in spring, that's what kind of stuck in my head with Jonas Williams, and something that's lacking, I think, with some other quarterbacks in this 26 class. But I'm really bullish on Jonas Williams long term. Does he start in 2026? You know, that's not in the conversation right now. I think even if Jayden Maiava is not back, you either lean to some of these guys on the roster currently, or maybe even transfer portal. But, you know, long term, just get him in this Lincoln Riley offense, get him acclimated to the system and all that kind of stuff. And I do think this is a guy with a lot of upside long term. And of course, Deshonne Longstreet's kind of that quarterback of the future for USC right now. Big time 5-star signing that Lincoln Riley landed last recruiting cycle. That's kind of the guy of the future right now. I just think Jonas Williams has the traits to really turn himself into a good quarterback and maybe push for a starting spot down the line. Now, moving on to the running backs in this 2026 class, we're going to get started with Deshonne Redeaux. This is my favorite football player in the entire country in this 2026 class. So why am I such a big fan of Deshonne Redeaux? 5'10", 195 pounds, really big running back. You just take a look at him. You think you're going to turn on the film and he's going to be breaking tackles and, you know, just a guy that's a mauler. He's definitely a mauler. He's got great contact balance, but the athletic profile is next level for a guy that's carrying 195 pounds. We have a 10.500 meter time. That's a really good number for a guy that's 170 pounds. For a guy that's carrying as much weight and as much strength as Deshonne Redeaux has, that's about as good of a track number as I think you'll find in this 2026 class. So not just a straight line speed. You're going to see him make these cuts in the open field. The change of direction ability is great. It's not like the long speed is like, oh yeah, you just give him a little bit and then he's going to get fast down the line. No, this dude's very explosive. He's as fast as he is as soon as he gets the ball. You know, such a quick trigger. And then we're going to see the change of direction ability right here at 5'10", 195. We're also going to see him just bounce off of arm tackles. And that explosiveness kind of plays into that physicality that he runs with. You know, this dude, you just give him a little crease, he's just going to put his foot in the ground, get upfield, explode into the second level, and then we see how strong of a running back he is right there. You can take a look at this here, the way that he can just kind of string broken tackles together, and then he has that 10 500-meter time downfield to kind of turn a pretty good gain into a really long gain. So I think this is a guy that would have contributed a whole lot in 2025. I mean, you take a look at the injuries in USC's running back room: Eli Sanders, Wayman Jordan. We don't know who's going to be back. I think Wayman Jordan's got a shot to be drafted. Honestly, if I was him, we'll see how that plays out. Brian Jackson won't be back. This guy that entered the transfer portal. I think this is going to be a massive guy for USC in 2025, 2026, his first season on campus. I do think that you're going to not lean into him. It does depend if Wayman Jordan's back. It does depend, who exactly is back in this running back room. But I got to tell you, this dude's going to make an impact on college football games sooner rather than later. I think it's going to be pretty early in the USC season where you're going to see him just break a long run, and then USC fans, the ones that aren't following recruiting are going to be like, wow, this Redeaux kid's pretty good. I'm here to tell you this Redeaux kid's really good right now. So really excited about him, not just that first season, but long term as well as the game continues to slow down for him. I mean, you take a look at Wayman Jordan, like the patience and all that kind of stuff that he runs with. I really hope Wayman Jordan's back so, he can kind of learn from him in regards to that patience and the vision that Wayman Jordan has, because, I mean, the athletic and the physical profile that Deshonne Redeaux has, if he can really work on that kind of stuff, this dude's going to be one of the best running backs in the country. And I just spent the last 2.5 minutes talking about how good of a football player Deshonne Redeaux is. The other running back in this 2026 class, do not overlook Sean Alston, because this dude's really good in his own right. 5'9", 205, Harvey in Ohio. Another guy really productive in 2025. Another thing I didn't mention about Redeaux, he's a bit banged up this senior season. But talking about Sean Alston, this guy was so productive. At the beginning of the season, I just I would check every USC commit just to kind of follow guys. Every big team I follow some of their commits. And Sean Alston, every week, it was just like 200 yards. 3 touchdowns, 250 yards, 4 touchdowns. Just so productive at the high school level. And I think the kind of running back that you're getting with Sean Alston, he's very well-rounded. I think Deshonne Redeaux, he's a great athlete, great physical running back with Redeaux, just leaning a bit more into that athleticism. With Sean Alston, great athlete, very physical running back, just leaning a bit more into the physicality. And I don't think everything's going to be as obvious as that thunder and lightning combination that USC had back in 2004. Lindell White, Reggie Bush, obviously Lindell White was like that really physical running back, and then Reggie Bush was the lightning, the really fast running back. I think both Sean Alston and Deshonne Redeaux, both thunder and lightning. One's just a bit more thunder, one's a bit more lightning. But, talking about how physical of a running back Sean Alston is, he's a really good athlete. We see that on this highlight tape. But I also really like that we see some of this receiving skill set that he has, because that's not something that showed up quite as much on Deshonne Redeaux's highlight tape. And, of course, it all depends on the system that you're getting used in high school. You don't really hold that against kids. But Sean Alston, for as physical of a running back as he is, I really do like the receiving skill set that we see with him. But, with Redeaux, I said it was a bit more of that quick trigger, just getting downhill. I think with Sean Alston, you kind of have a guy that you just kind of let pick up that momentum. And then when he gets a lot bigger and stronger, I think Alston will actually be talking about being a bit closer to 215, 220. That's when we start really talking about Alston being a very powerful football player in a year or two down the line. So I think Redeaux's a guy that you're going to see a whole lot in 2026 next season. Sean Alston's a guy that towards the end of the season, I think you'll start seeing a bit more. And then you get really excited about the future of USC's running back room having both of these guys, because they're both really good running backs. Moving on to the receivers that USC signed in this 2026 class. I mean, it is just loaded with talent, the names that USC brought in. And this is the highest rated guy according to 24/7. That's Dixon-Wyatt, 4-star wide receiver from Mater Dei. Obviously, that Mater Dei pipeline's been pretty rich for USC, especially at wide receiver. Remember, Amon-Ra St. Brown was a big-time recruit coming out of Mater Dei. But the point with Dixon-Wyatt, a guy that was committed to Ohio State pretty early, and then in the past 2 months, it just kind of seemed like he wasn't going to actually end up signing at Ohio State, and he ends up flipping to USC on signing day, or the signing period, the past 3 days. And what do I like about Dixon-Wyatt? So right away, I think this guy's so good at stretching the field. I don't think that 100-meter time is going to be the best in the entire country, but I think at 6'2", the body contortion ability that he has downfield, I mean, you can take a look at the ball skills here, the way that he can just kind of adjust his body, especially on these downfield throws, that eye-body coordination, the flexibility that he has, the ball tracking, all that kind of stuff. I think he does a really good job finding these balls downfield. It's really easy to throw to him because he's a pretty big target at 6'2", and then that ability that he has to kind of adjust his body. It reminds me a lot of Tanook Hines, the Z wide receiver for USC right now, having a great season as a freshman. I think Dixon-Wyatt has a pretty similar skill set that he does, and obviously he's a freshman, so I think this will be a good rotational guy year one for sure, with that ability to kind of develop around that receiving skill set, that field stretching skill set. So I think that's what he does best. I don't think that's all he does well. I do think this guy's a really good route runner and a 6'2" wide receiver. He's a pretty big wide receiver. Excited to see him keep adding weight and kind of see how he develops around that ability to take the top off of the defense. But that's my thoughts on Keeney Dixon-Wyatt. Boobie Feaster's a guy I'm really excited to talk about. He's a guy that's 6'1", 180, DeSoto, Texas, 6'8" football in Texas, about as big of a high of a level of competition as you'll find across the entire country. But I think this is the future of the slot position at USC. I don't think Mekhi Lemon's going to be back in 2026. This is going to be a big name that helps him kind of replace Mekhi Lemon. Not going to be Mekhi Lemon the second he steps onto campus, but kind of replace him in the aggregate. But talking about what Boobie Feaster does well, this is a guy that was originally in the class of 2027, reclassed. I think July 4th was when he originally committed to USC, and then obviously ended up signing. But this is a young guy. This is a guy that's supposed to still be in high school when he steps onto campus at USC. So 6'1", 180. This guy he moves like a slot receiver. The way that he comes out of breaks, the way that he can just come out of his release, the explosiveness, all that athletic profile really looks like a slot receiver in a guy that's 6'1". So I know 6'1" doesn't sound like a big wide receiver, but when you consider that I think he's going to be a slot receiver at the next level, that's a pretty good frame. And then also he plays bigger than just 6'1". The way that he can kind of adjust the balls downfield. We talked about Caden Dixon-Wyatt's ability to stretch the field and, contort his body. Boobie Feaster does that really well as well for a guy that has a slot receiver skill set. Also love the way that he completes as a blocker. I mean, you take a look at Malachi Toney, another guy that was supposed to be in high school this season for Miami. The reason that he saw the field, part of it was because of how exciting of an athlete he was, but you asked me, the bigger thing was that ability to compete as a blocker. I mean, Miami, the amount of times they run the ball, you really have to see the field. You have to block if you're going to see the field as a wide receiver, and Boobie Feaster competes as a blocker as well. I mean, you're getting a guy that's 6'1", that moves like he's like 5'10", but blocks like he's 6'1", and then, the ability with the ball in his hands as well is also really exciting. Not a guy that you have to manufacture touches for. He's going to separate as a wide receiver, but I also think that, when he does have the ball in his hands, he becomes a real threat. And also, like I said, this guy's supposed to still be in high school next season. I'm really excited to see how he continues growing into that skill set, because I don't think he's played his best football yet, that's for sure. And he's playing at a pretty high level of competition. But really excited about Boobie Feaster. So when I was talking about Boobie Feaster, I said you're not going to have one guy replace Mekhi Lemon in the slot year one, especially as a freshman. You're going to have to kind of do that in the aggregate with multiple players. And I think Trent Mosley's one of those guys that's going to contribute as a slot receiver from day one. 5'10", 170 pounds, a guy that's been pretty highly rated in this 2026 class for a while now. He's a bit more of a traditional slot receiver in my opinion, and also a guy that is a great athlete. We especially see that with the ball in his hands. You're going to manufacture touches for him. I said you don't necessarily have to do that for Boobie Feaster. I think Trent Mosley, the skill set that he has day one, even if he's not the starting slot receiver, this is a guy that you kind of rotate in, get the ball in the perimeter, and just let him do something. He's also a very good route runner. That athleticism that shows up with the ball in his hands. A lot of kids that are just so juiced up, so twitched up the way that Trent Mosley is, you'll see that with the ball in their hands in high school, but you just don't really see that as a route runner. There's kind of more, I think running with the ball in your hands is a very natural human thing, just kind of getting away from whatever, that's pretty natural to humans. I think route running is a bit more nuanced, and I think with Trent Mosley, we'll see that ability to kind of snap off the brakes. It looks really good. A bit more undersized than Boobie Feaster at 5'10 and a half, 170, so I'm not sure we quite see him as much from day one as he continues to add weight and continues to kind of grow. But, the athletic skill set, again, these guys are all great athletes at USC recruits, and I think Trent Mosley's a really good receiver as well. Moving on to Luck Weaver, I think this guy might be the fan favorite for USC fans in this 2026 class. We've done a lot of videos throughout this summer about USC commits and talking about them, and Luck Weaver's a guy that actually ended up signing, of course, with USC. And this was one guy that USC fans just could not shut up about, to be honest. And he's a really good wide receiver. I think his senior year film, he's gotten even better from his junior year film that we watched this offseason. So I'll talk about what he got better in a little bit, but just telling you, 6'3", 205. Dude is a massive wide receiver. Again, we talked about that ability to stretch the field with Caden Dixon-Wyatt. He does a really good job with the ball tracking downfield as well. He's a really good straight line athlete, but also love the ability with the ball in his hands. 6'3", 205 is a big football player. When he gets the ball in his hands, he just becomes a weapon. And it's not in the same way that we just watched Trent Mosley, where it's like a left-right necessarily. This is a guy where if you get the ball, he's just going to run in a straight line. He's real fast in a straight line. He almost becomes a running back, almost a power back, the way that he can just kind of run through arm tackles. Really strong football player as well. Now, the thing I think Luck Weaver got a lot better at, we watched the junior year film this offseason. A lot of the catches were kind of body catches, these drag routes where you can just kind of hit him on the body and then he goes upfield. I really thought that on the junior year tape, the only thing that really was left to be desired is I'd like to see these happen a bit more often away from the body, and that's exactly what happens on the senior year film. You can tell this dude took the ball skills serious in the offseason from his junior into his senior season. So, we've seen a lot of crazy catches away from the body so far this tape. Like I said, he also has that ability to adjust to the ball downfield. That's all well and good, but if you can't catch like a 5-yard slant away from your body, you're not going to really be able to see the field as often as you ought to. And I think Luck Weaver did a really good job working on those ball skills from the junior to the senior season. Mark Bowman's another guy that was originally in the class of 2027. He reclassed this offseason, and this is actually sophomore film that we're watching. I think one of the most impressive sophomore tapes I've seen in a long time, and I know it says 4-star on the screen. Make no mistake, this is a 5-star talent that USC brought in into this tight end room. 6'4.5", 225, modern day, again, that pipeline that USC's really likes, pulling talent from. This guy is such a fun tight end prospect to watch, and it's because he's not only a tight end, this dude's a wide receiver. He's just a pass catcher. I really wish instead of tight end, the TE, I would have just put W for weapon, because this guy's a weapon. So why is Mark Bowman one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end in this 2026 class? I think he's the best tight end in the 2026 class because of how good the route running is, the release that he has. He looks a lot more like a wide receiver. He doesn't move like he's 6'4.5", 225. Honestly, I think when you see him run routes, you forget that he's 6'4.5", 225 until you start seeing him block, because this dude absolutely gets after it as a blocker. Love the way that he keeps that low leverage. That's a difficult thing for a guy at 6'4.5". You watch a lot of other tight end prospects, a lot of the other highest rated tight ends that other schools bring in, that I'm sure USC's brought in throughout the years as well. A lot of the guys, they're just kind of awkward. They're 6'5", but they look like they went to bed 6 foot and then woke up at 6'5", and then you're just kind of betting on them growing into that frame and developing into a really good pass catcher down the line. I think Mark Bowman's a guy that's going to step into USC, be a great pass catcher because of his ability to separate at 6'4.5", And he's also going to see the field as an inline tight end because this is a guy that absolutely just gets after it in the run game. So I think it's kind of easy. Like with a lot of other positions, there's a lot of discussions whether is this guy the best quarterback in the class. Like before, I said Deshonne Redeaux is the best running back in the class. That's my opinion. I completely understand if other people prefer some of the other running backs in this 26 class. With Mark Bowman, I'm like, I really think he's the clear-cut best tight end in this 2026 class, and USC ends up signing him. The other tight end for USC in this 2026 class is Josiah Jefferson, also a Mater Dei alum, actually. It's where he went to high school before going to that JUCO. 6'5", 230, the number 5 JUCO transfer in this 2026 cycle across the entire country. So with him, arm length, wingspan. Mark Bowman is 6'4.5". He's a tall wide receiver. There's no doubt about it. But Josiah Jefferson, he's a lot longer than Mark Bowman is. So I think you're getting a guy with a basketball wingspan. He played basketball at Mater Dei. I mean, you can take a look at how he gets after it as a blocker as well. I really like this dude's upside as an inline tight end, especially considering how wide and how long of a wide receiver he is. He's also a really good route runner for a guy that's carrying 230 pounds. I mean, massive target downfield. I think with Mark Bowman, you lean a lot more into that athleticism at that size. I think with Josiah Jefferson, you lean a bit more into the size because this dude is a massive wide receiver, massive tight end with a receiver skill set, no doubt about it. Really love the wingspan. Also, Tony Jefferson's brother, little fun fact that we got on Josiah Jefferson, the safety. I think he plays for the Chargers now. Let this last one run out. Moving into this offensive line class for USC, we're going to start with the 5-star offensive lineman, Keenyi Pepe, one of the highest rated prospects in the entire country regardless of position. He's the 1 5-star that USC signs in this 26 class, at least according to the 24/7 ratings I'm using. We're not really caring about star ratings here, but talking about Pepe, the kind of player that he is, 6'7", 320. I want to start the conversation with the frame that Keenyi Pepe has, because at 6'7", 320, he's a massive offensive tackle, but you just take a look at him. I mean, you watch a lot of the other top-rated offensive linemen. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. A lot of them are overweight. A lot of them are fat. They have to kind of lose weight and put on muscle to see the field at the next level. With Pepe, I mean, this dude's 320 pounds. He's very well put together, and we see the way that he moves, not only on the kick steps to the outside, the way that he can climb to the linebackers into the second level. This dude's a great athlete for a guy that's 6'7", 320. Massive human being, that's where it all starts. He's got great physical traits, very rare physical traits. I'll start with that. The wingspan is insane. I think it's even longer than 6'7", and the weight as well. But also that athletic ability with how big of a football player he is. I think all offensive linemen at the high school level are always going to be raw. I don't think there's anyone, even the top-rated 5-stars, that you can say they're going to walk in and be a great offensive lineman from day one. The way that you can kind of lean on other positions, edge rushers, you can kind of just put them in. If they're a good pass rusher, you can get them on third down situations. Offensive linemen, you can't really do that to the same extent. So do we see this guy year one? I think it depends a lot on how he progresses in fall camp, or in spring camp, that is. A guy that's going to enroll early, I'd imagine. We don't have that confirmed yet, but as that hand placement gets better, as you kind of learn that offensive line technique. I mean, when you talk about balls of clay at offensive line, this is probably the biggest ball of clay in this 2026 class, regardless of position, both metaphorically and physically speaking. He's just a massive football player. So really think this guy's upside, is sky high. Do we see him in 2026? I think that remains to be seen. Asun Tuff is the second highest rated offensive lineman in this class for USC. We're going to take a look at him right now. 6'5", 335 from Corner Canyon in Utah. Massive offensive lineman, right? Right away we can take a look. He's playing the tackle position at high school. Probably more of a guard at the next level. Just a massive guy, not just a guy that's, pure frame, really strong as well. We're going to see when he's coming on these down blocks, just absolutely devastating. And he moves pretty well. I'll tell you right now, 335. Really big. The way that he moves at 335 is pretty dang good. 6'5", also just a big football player. This is more of those run-of-the-mill offensive linemen where I think they have a lot more work to see the actual field. You just kind of recruit these kids as the physical ability that they have and the athletic ability as well. And I think this is a guy. Pepe is like the perfect blend of both. I think this guy right now, you're kind of leaning into the physicality, and then you kind of develop him as an athlete going forward. We started with Pepe, and we said that he was the perfect blend of athleticism and physicality. Then we watched Tafa, who's a bit more of a physical presence right now. Then you develop that athleticism, turn him into a really good guard going down the road. The guy that we're watching right now, Vlad Diakonov, he's kind of the opposite of Tafa, where he's a great athlete right now. You just kind of develop the physicality around the frame that he already has. So 6'6", really long offensive tackle. I think this guy's definitely a tackle down the road because of that athleticism. We'll see the way that he gets into the second level, how much ground he covers on that first kick step. Just a bit of a while until he sees the field, because 275, he's going to have to continue adding weight. Very physical football player, though. We're going to see the way that he puts these defensive linemen into the ground. He wants to finish every block. I think this is a pure, a real upside guy. This is what most highly rated offensive linemen look like. Guy with a couple great traits right now. You just kind of iron that kind of stuff out going forward. Pepe, I think that guy sees the field year one, at least as a rotational guy at the worst. I think this guy Vlad right now, has the traits to turn into a really good offensive lineman down the road. All right, that was every offensive signee, and I'm just going to wrap up with some of my 2 cents. I'm going to do 3 superlatives, I think. We're going to get started with the biggest impact day one. I think it's Deshonne Redeaux. I know I hyped him up a whole lot in that video, but you just take a look at what USC has in this running back room. And like I said before, of course it matters if Wayman Jordan comes back in 2026. But, I mean, like, the entire season when USC got as banged up in that running back room, and they had to lean on King Miller, the former walk-on, who did a real good job, by the way. Just the entire time I was like, man, they could really use Redeaux and Sean Alston. So I'll say the biggest day one impact to me is Deshonne Redeaux. Biggest long-term upside, it's got to be Pepe. I mean, you just take a look at how big of a human he is, how athletic he is, and I said every offensive lineman is going to be raw coming into college. That's just how it is, you know. I just think if he gets that hand placement right, if he starts working on some of the finer aspects of offensive lineman, being an offensive lineman, that's a guy with not only first-round upside, I think top 16, you know, top half of the first-round upside, just based on what he has physically and athletically. I think he's going to be a major contributor for USC down the line for sure, and he's got the upside to be one of the best players in the entire country, especially at offensive lineman at some point in his career. And then wrapping up with my biggest diamond in the rough, I'm considering these guys that are 3 stars, and I know that a lot of these players are better than their ratings show on the TV screen or on the screen that I put on. It's just according to 24/7. But I'm going to say Tron Baker is the biggest sleeper in this 2026 class for USC on the offensive side of the ball. I didn't do the voiceover for a reason. I didn't think I could add much to the highlight tape. It really was a highlight tape. Sometimes you watch high school film and you can see why football teams like a football player, you know, because of their upside. But, I mean, Tron Baker, that's like a mixtape. You know, you remember 7th Woods, that basketball player that went to UNC? I almost feel like his highlight tape reads a bit more like a basketball highlight tape where you just get real excited about the football player. But, yeah, that was that video. This video for USC. We did the offense today. If you guys reach out enough, I'm going to try to give love to other schools as well, so I kind of want to only do one side of the ball. But, you know, if this video does well enough, I'll definitely do the defensive side of the ball for USC. I mean, USC fans probably in my top 5 when we're talking about people that reach out and talk about recruiting. I really like that you guys follow recruiting. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think about any of these football players. Like I said, I'm very curious to hear USC fans' opinions. You know, I have one point of view because I follow all of recruiting. You guys have a different point of view because you're a lot more laser focused into just USC, and you know, you have a better understanding of what the system asks out of the football players. I can kind of talk about that, but I'm really curious to hear USC fans' opinion. Thanks for watching.